All right, good morning, everyone. So today was another beautiful day in the books. Almost wasn't beautiful. Could have very easily been a pretty big red day. But regardless, green or red, psychology was flawless. And by the way, this kind of looks like a massive rising wedge. Not quite. Market is running nicely though. But yeah, so I'm gonna review all the trades this morning and everything that went into them. If my trading view will load, there we go. Starting with the pre-market analysis. Now, obviously, the market's bullish. I said days ago I'm expecting all-time highs in the market. Looks great. NQ will get there first. Now, we've been running overnight, and you can see I have a pivot left over. Where is this magical pivot from? Well, it is from the 24th of February. Here it is. I have nothing else near. Nothing below, nothing above. Anything below wouldn't matter. It's the only pivot I got near. Even on the NQ chart, I got nothing. Nothing. The closest pivot is all the way up here. Major pivot, that is. And we got supply way before that. And we are rejecting supply this morning, as you can see here. However, I am a lot more bullish for this ES pivot than I am for supply. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't be as bullish, but if you take a look at this price action, I don't know why my Wi-Fi is slow today. Look how much time we spent near this pivot, right? The more time you test a resistance, the weaker it gets. I know a lot of brand new traders think it's the opposite, which makes no sense whatsoever. If you have a support level, price action has bounced off that support level 3 times. What are the chances it's going to bounce off a 4th time? Because every single time it bounces off a level, it bounces because buy orders that were placed within that level were filled. And every time price action dips into that level, it sweeps either a majority or a large percentage of those buy orders to cause a reversal. And very rarely is it just going to keep refilling buy orders every time it comes down, right? So even though people are going to place more buy orders down there, it usually takes a lot more than it gives. So if we have a level that's tested, that's bounced off a level 3 times, if we have price actions bounced off level 3 or 4 times, every time it bounces after that, it's more and more likely to break because it's eating up more and more of those orders during every test. It's kind of like that here. Now, the problem was we were making higher highs on ES, which is actually a bearish thing. However, we were also making lower lows. We made lower lows here. With this large wick here, we swept these lows, and we have invalidated a majority of this drop. I am technically triggered into calls as it stands right now. And with the amount of testing that we've done of this level, it's got a pretty good chance of breaking today. But the problem is we are so close to this PT that if I get one green candle at open, I need to enter, and that's what happened. Got a green candle, I had to enter. I didn't even wait for the candle to close, but I did pretty much fill right here. Now, I have to go half size, though, because I don't like entering right at market open. Way too risky. Way too many things can go wrong. So I did go half size on SPX. And I will either average down if we make a lower low. And really, I was wanting this lower low to hit here. Let me see where I actually filled, because I think I got filled in a little bit better of a place than that, because I think my stop loss was lower. No, my stop loss is right here, pretty much, right? 1 to 1. I need a lower low. Need a lower low to average down. Or I will average up on this trade if we invalidate the selling wick. Next candle was red. And it technically swept a lower low, but it happened so fast that I couldn't do anything about it. I ended up adding on my trade up here. I think I filled slightly higher than what I entered. I entered at 2.4 initially. I think I filled at like 2.45. So that was kind of a red flag there. The contracts weren't going up much. So now this was a normal size trade. Normal size trade here. Looked good though. Very likely. And then it didn't look good. And put in a reversal candle. Now NQ was way weaker than ES. Which means ES is super strong, which is good because I am betting on ES with my SPX calls. But right now, NQ looks like it's at least going to make a lower low, and it swept a higher high in supply, confirming a bearish liquidity sweep. So yeah, it looks like it's going to get these lows, which is a problem because I think ES wants to go up, but NQ is going to drag it to my stop loss beforehand. Well, now, interestingly enough, I have a trend line here. It's not a perfect trend line yet, but it is a solid 2-point touch trend line. This candle gave me some hope. NQ swept all the pivots below. It swept this. Huge reversal candle, huge volume spike. ES is still strong. Looked fantastic to go up. And I even said, if we, let me see, 641. Okay, not quite yet. Looks great. Looks great for PT, man. So good, so strong. 10 out of 10. And then we put in another shooting star on ES. And then we dump. Now, it's still way stronger than NQ, but now NQ looks like it's going to go to demand. So I was pretty certain I was going to stop loss here. And I told you guys that. But all morning, or the entire time during this trade, I said if I stop loss, it's probably just going to sweep in. It's going to come back up. It is very likely, in my opinion, to get past that yellow level today. Whether it just sweeps it barely and comes back down or breaks above it and runs, I don't care. It is very likely to get this level. So I tell you guys that. And personally, I am fully expecting at this point to stop out of the trade. Fully expecting to stop out of the trade. But not only that, I'm fully expecting it to come back up after I stop out. Now, of course, that doesn't mean I don't stop out. I will always stop out because that is when my initial hypothesis was invalidated. But it's just more so unfortunate. There's nothing you can do about it, right? The only thing you can do is execute flawlessly and honor your rules. And my rules is about honoring my stop losses because I'm past the stage of blowing accounts if I'm wrong. But then we came back up. And now when this red candle was here, I'm like, if we somehow magically invalidate this entire drop, I will add more calls. Now, I was already in a full-size position, so it's adding more risk. And it's something I'm very rarely do. You guys have seen me do it a little bit more over the last month and a half. Every single time I have, it's been green. Spoiler, this time it was red. But I only do it on super confident trades. And I am still very willing to stop out. That doesn't change. But though when I add a little bit extra, it's not a mandatory alert. Most people shouldn't even follow it because most people, if they add more to a trade, they can't stop out of it. Right? The more you add, the harder it is to stop out. So, but that's what I said. If this comes all the way back up, I'll add. Well, it came all the way back up. I got a selling wick, so I didn't. A selling wick came very fast. And then I ended up adding on this candle here. Was it this one? Yes. Same average too, 2.4. So now between my entire trade, I went from a 1x leverage trade to roughly a 1.3, right? I was a little bit heavier. I didn't add a lot because I wanted it to actually kind of be an averaged out, but it wasn't. So I guess it's good that it wasn't because it didn't chop too much. But yeah, it was roughly about an extra third of a position. So for easy numbers, if my normal position size is $10,000, I was in with $13,000. We have this nice pennant formed though, and right out of the gate we are chopping like crazy. And you know, when this shooting star happened here, I kind of figured, yep, it may finally be one of those mornings where I'm red because as you guys know, if we compress for the first hour, I will be red every single time. If we fail to sweep a single pivot, I will be red every single time, or most times. You know, supply and demand or some kind of scalping can often save me, but yeah. So I'm expecting this morning to kind of be red, but not anymore. Because now, not only have we retraced twice, or really 3 times, because this buying wick was a huge retracement as well, we've come all the way back up. This looks great. NQ sweeping lower lows, huge volume spike coming out of this 45-minute demand. Looks great. Now, obviously, I'm a little bit heavier in this trade, and you have to keep in mind options chop, right? So if I stopped out of this trade 1 candle after entering, I probably would have stopped out around 1.8. Well, now if it comes all the way down here, these contracts will be at like 1.4 or something, which is way too big of a loss. So I move my stop loss up to here when a majority of this leg is invalidated. And that's a great stop loss because by the time that happens, I'm bearish for a break to the downside. I still think it's going to come back up if that happens, but I know it's at least going to go a decent amount lower than this trend line. And then maybe it'll come back up. Because even though I think it will, it's not guaranteed. So you can't just hold hoping it's going to come back up because you don't know if it's going to or when it's going to. And in 0-day contracts, you really can't afford that. And then this candle happened. I'm like, well, I'm bearish again. Because now it's more likely to break to the downside. Very crazy how bad it was compressing this morning. But I did adjust this to a 3-point touch trend line. Wasn't quite perfect, but neither was the bottom one. And then I was back to being super bullish. Thought it was going to hit PT. NQ got the lower low with a buying wick. An okay volume spike and validated most of the drop. Looked great. 95% chance it was going to hit PT. And then this magical candle showed up. I checked news on Trading Economics calendar and Market Watch. There was no news for 6:45 a.m. And it was interesting because this happened at 6:45 my time, which is 9:45 Eastern. And that's the time that news will come out. Most of the time it's PMI news. I'm like, is there PMI today? Why did this candle happen? So anyways, I was going to stop out on this candle, but then I put in a huge buying wick immediately when it happened. So I'm like, all right, if this buying wick even starts to invalidate, I'm out of this trade. Candle green. If the green candle validates, I'm out. And I was out at the start of this candle. Or sorry. Yes, I was. I was out right when it hit here. So it did bounce right after I exited. And at this point, I actually did think it was going to shoot right back up and I'd have to re-enter. Because NQ yet again made a lower low with a very bullish reversal candle. So that was kind of unfortunate, but I had to. Like, I had to honor my stop loss. I knew that it was probably going to come up after I got swept, right? But you have to trade flawlessly. You have to trade according to your plan, and that's the point that I agreed to honor my stop loss. If you're not going to honor your stop loss here, and by the way, this trade was minus 37%. It's my biggest red trade that I've had in a while. Not a huge red trade by any means, but this red trade will take roughly 2 normal 20% green trades to make back. So this was my biggest red trade that I've had in a while. But it's fine because the odds were damn good until this magical candle showed up. But if I'm not willing to honor my stop loss here at minus 37% on a trade that's a little bit larger than my full-size position, if I'm not able to honor this stop loss, am I going to be able to honor this stop loss down here if I give it more room for minus 55%? And then what about minus 75%? And then 80%? If you can't honor your initial stop loss, you are not going to be you are not going to be able to honor your next stop loss. It's just not going to happen. Don't lie to yourself. Stop lying to yourself. You know what happens, right? So I just honor it, even though I know it's probably going to come back up. 95% certainty. Well, it actually continued down, and I said puts look pretty good here. My PT would be this ES low, but I can't enter puts. ES is a lot stronger than NQ. NQ has no good PTs. It's already almost at demand. Yes, there's some pivots down here that I can play to, so I kind of lied. There are okay PTs, but it's not bearishly consolidating. It's been chopping down in a very steep fashion with a lot of volume spikes during every single drop. And this recent candle, it is an okay sized red candle, but look at the volume on it, right? That's not a very bearish candle given the volume. If there wasn't a lot of volume on that candle and the candle was like pure sellers, then that would be a different story. But really the only trade I'll be able to get into technically is SPX puts, and it's stronger than NQ. And I'm unwilling to take a loss on it. Because if I enter puts, I'm going to have to stop out. Like here. There's a trade. 1.2 restore. And if I stop out here, you know what I'm going to have to do 100%? I'm going to have to take calls. Is there any guarantee that those calls work out? No. So that means by taking this trade, I'm exposing myself to losing 2 more sizable losses in a row. Not going to happen. I don't care if this trade ends up being green. If you're not willing to spend the money, which means if you're not willing to lose the money, if you're not willing to spend the amount of money that's required to find out if the trade's going to be green, you can't afford the trade. That's where I was at with this trade. Because if I lost, I would have to expose myself to losing again. Hence, this would be a very expensive trade to take for not a huge reward. Anyways, it missed and it swept liquidity perfectly. Now, NQ, I'll just update these pivots a little bit. We had a little bit of a double fake out prophecy here too. I'm not going to talk about that. NQ had a pivot here. And here. And ES has some up here. Well, now this looks good. This looks very good. I'm foaming at the mouth for this trade. And I told you guys, if I get back into calls, I'm going to be in there like underwear. I'm going to be heavy, and I'm willing to stop out of it. And if I stop out, it'll be a big red day. It'll take roughly a day and a half, maybe 2 green days to make back. But the trades are phenomenal, right? It's not often that I get such a nice trend line up here with such a nice pivot that's already been tested as long as it has. With the lower lows, the bullish liquidity sweeps, the demand bounce on NQ, the momentum, all those things, it's freaking beautiful. I will lose money on this setup any day. But here, NQ actually flipped stronger than ES. So I said I was going to be heavy in calls. I wasn't quite heavy in calls because NQ flipped a lot stronger than ES here. And I knew, especially with the strength change, NQ is beyond likely to get to this yellow line. So I took a little bit more of a risky move and I entered QQQ calls half size here, planning on averaging up on this trade. Half size here. And then this candle happened. This is beautiful. This is pretty much where I entered SPX calls as well. Yeah, pretty much at the close of this candle, at the start of the next candle. I entered SPX calls. Half size on SPX calls and added a bit more to QQQ calls. Now keep in mind, my initial plan was to enter SPX calls around here. This is pretty early, but I'm able to be triggered in. Bullish liquidity sweep. We've invalidated a lot of this move. Problem is, we're at the 61.8 fib, and I didn't chart the fib myself when I was taking this trade, but I knew it was around that area, which 61.8 is a big resistance level, can easily reject, so that's why I entered half size. So I did add a little bit to QQQ here, but I wasn't at a full size position yet on QQQ, and I was only half size on SPX. But when it breaks over the 61.8 here, now I averaged up on the rest. I don't really remember what my average was. I think I added at like 3.2 here. And then like 60-ish cents here on QQQ. 60 something, 62 maybe. So now I was in 2 full-size positions, 2x leverage. That's the biggest I'll ever go. Normally 1.5x is the biggest I'll ever go, but oh my gosh, this setup is so good. I was 100% willing to lose money on this setup, and that's a mentality that most of you guys don't have, unfortunately. That needs to change. 100% willing to lose on this setup. 100%. I have no problem with it. I will take this same setup tomorrow, any day. And just like that, it exploded through it. Sold almost everything when this PT hit. All I had left was a single SPX call and a small QQQ position for runners, like 3. Because I am still technically bullish, because I was going for this ESPT, right? And NQ was a lot stronger at the time. I personally didn't trim any at this potential trim level. I'm going for that ES pivot. Well, the ES pivot hit, and now I'm bullish for this NQ pivot. NQ's a lot stronger than ES. I'm holding for it, but keep in mind, I have a very small runner position left. It was beautiful. QQQ calls got 86% gains. SPX calls got 54% gains, and that's actually when I took profits because I sold the top. That's where my PT was. It's pretty hard to not sell the top if it tops at your price target. But then we pull back. I closed my runner position here. And I was going to be done with the day, but this wasn't unexpected. The reason why I had such a light position left is because I told you guys in my channel, what pattern do you guys see here? An inverse head and shoulders, right? Where are we now? We are in supply, potentially sweeping a pivot. It is very likely to put in a right shoulder, but I'll leave in a runner position just in case it doesn't happen. But you guys should be thinking in advance with your patterns, right? That's why most people say patterns don't work. It's because they don't know how to read them. They don't know how to act upon them, right? If a head and shoulders forms, I don't wait to enter when it breaks out like the textbook tells you to, because then you're just going to get swept, right? I incorporate it into my analysis before the pattern's even formed. We have a left shoulder, we have a head, now we're at resistance. It's pretty damn obvious to anyone with eyes that, hey, a right shoulder is fairly likely. I'm going to cut my entire position minus a small runner. And if we do fall out of supply, depending on how we fall out of supply, I'll cut my runner position. And as you can see, this was a super bearish candle. We made another higher high with a selling wick. And we got this candle here. I stopped out of my runners here. This was a little bit too bearish, but I said, you know what? I'm going to take one more trade. One more trade. And I will re-enter QQQ calls if this drop invalidates, because I'll be pretty close to an inverse head and shoulders. This is still a great PT. It's worth going for me, especially after the liquidity that we swept. Shout out to demand down here. And the supply has been very tested as well. I don't think the supply is going to be an issue if we come back into it. I'll take one more trade, but it is going to be half size. Well, we end up coming back up. And QQQ was strong until it wasn't. Now I filled calls right when this candle, so I was going to fill calls on this candle, but I decided to wait. Next candle opened red. The second the candle flipped green, I filled. Because what happened? Shorts tested early into this candle. I mean, let's jump to the 5 seconds so you can see. Now you can kind of see what happened in this candle, right? Candle closed here. Shorts tested. Look at the volume spike, right? Shorts filling. Shorts tested. So the 1 minute candle opened red. The second it flipped green, shorts got invalidated yet again. That's good enough for a tiny short squeeze. That's enough for me to trigger into this trade. Now, you can see that ES actually flipped stronger than NQ. So I'm like, all right, well, I got to take both. But I was green on the day, had to work hard for it. Wasn't really willing to give back a ton of gains. And because we are technically chopping up in supply, this isn't a very proportional right shoulder. It's just not, right? I'm somewhat expecting it to pull back and do something like that, because the width of the shoulder would then kind of be proportionate to the left shoulder. So I need to enter this trade because I'm confirmed in, yet because it may continue to consolidate, I cannot be in full size. Well, I initially only agreed to be in this trade half size to save room to average down, but now I need to be in both SPX and QQQ. So I entered SPX 1/4 size and QQQ 1/4 size. I think SPX was actually a little bit bigger than a quarter size. I think it was right around a third. But my goal was, if I had to average down across both these positions, I would only be exposed to one 1x leverage trade. One normal size trade between the both of them. Well, we did kind of pull back just as predicted, but NQ ended up putting in a bull pennant, and NQ got super strong out of nowhere. And it chopped around for a while. ES was going, didn't really trim much here because I was looking for the NQ PT. We put in a rising wedge on NQ, which was kind of concerning. But we did end up eventually popping to the upside after lots of chop. And I sold everything on this candle here. So we finished the day on a great note. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't very big in this. I was only exposed between both the trades a little bit more than half size position. Maybe like 2/3 or something, like 3/5, maybe something like that. But still great gains. Great way to end the day, right? And great risk management as well, because that rising wedge was there. It could have easily broken to the downside. So I sold here. I sold everything here. SPX calls got 159% gains. QQQ calls only got 44% gains. Freaking useless, right? But that finished my day. And I just so happened to sell the top. It did come back down. Now it did run up later. But yeah, that was my day. I only had one hypothesis all day, and I was either going to lose pursuing it or win pursuing it. But regardless, it was a great hypothesis. And wow, demand is fantastic today because look at this demand bounce on NQ. If you guys don't have the supply and demand indicator, you guys are really missing out. Looks like I just don't have any supply and demand zones on ES today. Only in the big time frames. So yeah, that was my day. Great day. So in recap, first trade out of the gate, minus 37% loss. And I'll edit that my channel to say loss instead of just 37%. QQQ calls plus 86% gains. SPX calls plus 54% gains. Both of those trades were full-size trades, which was risky, but I was willing to take the loss on it. And then QQQ calls plus 44% gains and SPX 159% gains. Those were smaller trades, but end of the day pretty green. And nothing happened. Obviously, a lot happened that was unexpected during the first trade. Like the fact that it kept rejecting that trend line was crazy. But as far as general hypothesis, knowing that if I stop out, I'm probably going to have to get back in, but still stopping out anyways, no problem. And getting back in, no problem. Displayed flawless psychology, flawless execution, and I'm lucky to be rewarded as a result. Because, you know, if you guys look at my channel, it may seem like I know what's going to happen magically because we're just kicking ass so much lately, every freaking day. But the truth is, I have no idea what's going to happen. All I can control is how perfectly can I execute my edge, and how elevated can my state of mind be? How much can I not care about the outcome of this trade? And I'll either get lucky and get rewarded for that, or I'll get unlucky. That is all it is, right? I have no control over my outcomes, minus me deciding to trim because options decay. But yeah, great day. With that being said, does anyone have any questions regarding the analysis or trades that were taken? Chris says, when you're looking at stop loss hitting in options, do you normally stop out as soon as it touches? It's a little bit subjective, Chris. It kind of just depends. So like, for example, with this huge candle here, first off, you got to be realistic. You're going to have some reaction time. If a candle like this just spawns in out of nowhere, I'm not going to react immediately. If that wick didn't form within 2 seconds of that drop, I would have stopped out right away. But that wick formed right away, and it wicked right back over the area where I wanted to stop out, which, you know, my average was roughly here. My stop loss was moved up to here. So it's one tick lower. I'm like, okay, if we just start invalidating the buying wick, I'm out. Well, we bounce. All right. If we come back down, I am out. Out the millisecond it touches, because I already gave it plenty of room, right? So it kind of goes back and forth. That certain trade isn't really something that I can teach. It's a lot easier with futures. You're going to get swept more on futures, and your win rate's going to be lower with mechanical stop losses, but it's actually not going to matter in the long run P&L wise, because your losses are generally going to be smaller. But in options, I can't have hard stop losses on the chart, right? So it just kind of depends, especially when I enter half size. My stop loss is usually fairly soft because there's room to average down in the hypothesis. But if we dump to my stop loss and my hypothesis doesn't look like it's going to play out, if I were to average down, it looks like a losing trade, I just cut the trade early. I do that all the time, right? So, yeah, it's somewhat subjective, but I try to keep it as mechanical as possible, if that makes sense. So if it touches my stop loss, I don't always wait for the candle to close after. Because keep in mind, I'm stopping out here because at this point, I am now bearish for price action to go down here. Now, once price action gets to this low, I don't know if it's going to bounce. I don't know if it's going to continue down. I have no idea. But what I do know, according to my edge and my analysis, that if price action gets to here, and that was especially true here, right? If price action gets all the way back down to here, it is extremely likely to get to this level. I have no idea what it's going to do afterwards, but this is what I know. So I stop out once my edge tells me price action is extremely likely to continue at least a little bit. And for me, that was at this spot. And this is also where my initial hypothesis is invalidated. Type in chat, does that make sense, Chris? I'll wait for you to finish typing. Yep. All right, sweet. Well, thanks for the question. That was a great question. I'll make sure to ping everyone that little mini lesson is at the end of this recording. But all right. I will see you guys later. You guys have a blessed rest of your day. If you guys need anything, feel free to reach out. And yeah, I'll keep you guys updated with everything that's going on. And I'll let you guys know when this recording's posted. But all right, good luck if you keep trading. See you guys later.